Have you ever found yourself staring at a blank page, a half-finished project? You know what you want to say, but something holds you back. You tell yourself you're just making it better, that you have high standards. This is the promise of perfectionism. With just a little more effort, you can achieve flawlessness. It feels like a strength, a badge of honor. The world, after all, rewards perfection. We see the polished final products of others and assume they emerged flawless. But here's the uncomfortable truth. While you strive for perfection, the world keeps moving. Opportunities don't wait, and your audience moves on. The pursuit of flawlessness becomes an invisible barrier, preventing completion. It's a seductive trap keeping you stuck. It's not just a desire for high standards, it is a voice. It's that critical inner monologue that plays on a loop, pointing out every potential flaw. This voice is a master of disguise, often sounding like reason and responsibility. This voice is the guardian of your comfort zone, protecting you from judgment or failure. That little voice thrives on what-if scenarios that almost always end in disaster. The voice of perfectionism is not a coach. It is a critic determined to keep you from ever entering the game. It magnifies the risks and completely ignores the potential rewards. It feeds on your insecurities and grows stronger with every delay. This internal critic preys on the fear of not being good enough. Perfectionism hijacks this natural desire and twists it into an all-or-nothing demand. It is stealing your time, killing your momentum, and strangling your creativity. But it's a lie. It's the voice of fear, and it's time we learned how to turn down its volume. When we pull back the curtain, we see perfectionism, a silent killer of potential. It creeps in quietly, disguised as a friend. It creates paralysis. You're so focused on avoiding mistakes that you end up doing nothing. Your dreams remain locked in your mind, perfect but unrealized. They are all victims of this quiet sabotage. All meaningful progress is built on small, imperfect, and consistent steps. It erodes your self-confidence. In this episode, we are putting perfectionism directly in the spotlight. We are going to arm you with the tools to break free. It's time to stop waiting for perfect and start making progress. Because done is always better than perfect. Perfectionism masquerades as a commitment to high standards, making it difficult to identify as a problem. But perfectionism is not the same as a healthy pursuit of excellence. It twists this noble idea into an unforgiving demand for flawlessness. This isn't a high standard, it's an impossible one, reinforced by the belief that anything less than perfect is failure. This creates immense pressure, turning creativity into a high-stakes test. The fear of falling short can be crippling, preventing you from even starting. Instead, it is actively sabotaging action and growth under the guise of quality control. Perfectionism, on the other hand, drains you. It is fueled by fear, not inspiration. Unmasking this illusion is the first critical step. You are simply giving yourself permission to be human and to actually get things done. One of the most common symptoms of perfectionism is analysis paralysis. This is overthinking a situation to the point that no action is taken. The perfectionist gets so lost in the details, so consumed by weighing every possible option that they become completely stuck. They might spend weeks researching the perfect camera before ever taking a single photo, or months outlining a novel without ever writing the first chapter. The goal is to make the perfect choice, but the result is no choice at all. This paralysis is born from the fear of making the wrong move. They believe that if they just think a little longer, research a little more, or plan a little more meticulously, they can find a guaranteed path to success and completely eliminate risk, allowing the perfectionist to avoid the scary, messy reality of actually doing the work. The tragic irony is that it prevents the very thing the perfectionist needs most: real-world data and experience, while the most valuable lessons are waiting for you in the realm of action. Breaking free from this paralysis requires a fundamental shift in mindset. It means embracing the idea of becoming a scientist in your own life. Instead of trying to predict the perfect outcome, you must run experiments. You are simply gathering information, giving you the momentum to finally get out of your head and into the world. Perfectionism demands a steep price, mostly paid in time, energy, and joy. The endless pursuit of flawless results drains hours you'll never get back, often for tiny, invisible improvements. It breeds anxiety, burnout, and a constant sense of inadequacy, eroding your self-esteem and mental health. Perfectionism also strains relationships, turning collaboration into frustration and intimacy into distance. Most tragically, it suffocates creativity and joy, turning passion into pressure and play into dread. The more you chase perfection, the more you lose the love that inspired you to create. The ultimate cost? You trade your happiness for an illusion that never arrives. Ecclesiastes warns, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." Picture a farmer, seeds in hand, paralyzed by waiting for perfect weather, so he never plants and never harvests. Perfectionists do the same, waiting for ideal conditions. They miss their moment. Life's conditions are never perfect. There's always risk, always uncertainty. The wisdom is simple: act anyway. Plant your seeds, even if the wind blows. Progress comes from imperfect action, not endless hesitation. Don't let fear of flaws keep you from starting. The only guarantee is that inaction yields nothing. Ephesians says we're created for good works, not perfect ones. The goal isn't flawlessness, but meaningful contribution. A home-cooked meal shared with a friend matters more than a gourmet dish never served. Your value isn't tied to perfect output. It's inherent, established before you ever began. When you focus on serving, not impressing, the pressure lifts. Progress, not perfection, is the path. Let go of proving your worth, embrace doing good, imperfect work. That's where purpose and freedom are found. Stoic philosophers taught, focus on what you can control, your effort, not the outcome. Perfectionism obsesses over the uncontrollable, breeding anxiety. Instead, do your best with what you have, today. The Japanese wabi-sabi philosophy finds beauty in imperfection and authenticity. Your first draft, your rough attempt, they're not failures but beginnings full of character. Embrace the flaws, they tell your story. Let go of the need for polish and you'll create more freely and joyfully. True potential is unlocked by loving the imperfect process. Amazon began as a simple, imperfect online bookstore, not the polished giant we know today. Jeff Bezos launched with a minimum viable product, testing one idea: would people buy books online? If he'd waited for perfection, Amazon might never have existed. Early flaws became lessons fueling growth and innovation. The key: launch before you feel ready and let real feedback guide you. Every empire starts with a messy, imperfect first step. Don't wait for perfect start, learn and build as you go. In 2007, struggling to pay rent, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia saw an opportunity during a design conference when all local hotels were booked. They offered air mattresses and breakfast, creating a simple website called Airbed and Breakfast. They got 3 guests, charging $80 each. This was the beginning of Airbnb. It was a scrappy solution to a financial problem. Their first guests provided invaluable feedback and proof of concept. Airbnb's story shows the power of doing things that don't scale. True innovation often starts with manual, messy actions. Their imperfect beginning was their greatest asset, allowing them to deeply understand their customers. Today, YouTube is the undisputed king of online video. Yet, its origin story shows how a successful idea can emerge from a failed one. In early 2005, the founders launched a video dating service called TuneIn Hookup. It was a flawed concept, but they didn't get any videos. However, the founders were not married to their original idea. They abandoned the dating angle and opened the platform up to allow any type of video. Jawed Karim uploaded the very first video, Me at the Zoo. This pivot is the ultimate lesson in embracing imperfection. The founders of YouTube succeeded because they were willing to admit their idea was wrong and adapt. The best ideas are often discovered, not planned. What's happening when we're stuck in perfectionism? Where does the pressure come from? Perfectionism is rooted in a deep fear, the fear of being judged. It's the terror of exposing our work to the opinions of others. We imagine a harsh, critical audience ready to pounce. It's a fundamental fear of social rejection, wired into our biology. For our ancestors, being rejected from the tribe could be a death sentence. Perfectionism is this survival mechanism going into overdrive, trying to protect you from criticism. This fear creates a powerful inner critic, anticipating every possible negative comment. But in doing so, it paralyzes you. Perfectionism, driven by fear, sees vulnerability as a dangerous risk. We hide from the imagined jury that we believe is waiting to pass sentence. The first step is to recognize the fear for what it is, an outdated survival response. The only way to prove the fear wrong is to step into the arena and do it anyway. Another core psychological engine driving perfectionism is a cognitive distortion known as all-or-nothing thinking, or, black and white thinking. This is basically the tendency to see things in absolute terms. A situation is either perfect or, well, it's a complete failure. You're either a genius or you're an idiot. Your work is either a masterpiece or it's garbage. There's absolutely no middle ground, no room for nuance, and honestly, no space for good enough. This mental framework turns every single task into a high-stakes pass-or-fail exam on your entire identity. The pressure this creates is immense, and frankly, it's just unsustainable for any human being. This all-or-nothing mindset is a trap because it sets you up for constant disappointment. Since absolute perfection is an impossible standard, you're almost always going to land in the failure category in your own mind. You might complete 99% of a project beautifully, but the perfectionist's brain will obsess over the 1% that is flawed. This single, tiny imperfection is then used as evidence to label the entire project, and by extension yourself, as a failure. This is why perfectionists often struggle to celebrate their own achievements. They just can't see the victory, because they're blinded by the one small thing that wasn't perfect. This thinking pattern directly impacts your motivation and your willingness to take risks. If you believe that anything less than a perfect outcome is a total disaster, why would you even start something new or challenging? The perceived risk of failure is just way too high. This is actually why perfectionists often procrastinate. It's not because they're lazy, it's because they're terrified. Starting the task means starting the clock on that inevitable moment of judgment where they'll be measured against their own impossible standards. It honestly feels psychologically safer to not even try than to try and fall short of perfection. The trap convinces you that inaction is better than imperfect action. To escape this trap, you really have to consciously and intentionally introduce shades of gray into your thinking. You have to learn to see progress on a spectrum. Instead of a pass or fail grade, think of a scale from 1 to 10. Finishing a first draft, even a messy one, isn't a failure. It's a 3 out of 10. That's progress. Getting feedback and making revisions moves you to a 6. Launching at 80% done is an 8. This reframing allows you to acknowledge and celebrate small wins along the way. It breaks the paralyzing link between your actions and your identity, and it transforms the terrifying mountain of perfection into a manageable series of achievable steps. At the deepest level, perfectionism is not really about the work at all. It's about self-worth. The perfectionist secretly operates under a devastating core belief: I am not good enough as I am. They believe that if they can just produce perfect work, create a perfect home, or achieve a perfect life, then they will finally be worthy of love, acceptance, and respect. Their relentless striving is not a joyful pursuit of excellence. It's a desperate attempt to fix a perceived flaw in their own character. They're trying to use external achievements to fill an internal void. This, honestly, is the most dangerous and painful aspect of the psychology of perfectionism. This belief system creates what is known as conditional self-worth. Your sense of value is not stable or inherent. It's entirely dependent on your latest performance. When you succeed, you feel a temporary high, but when you fail or even just fall short of perfection, your self-esteem plummets. This is such an exhausting and emotionally volatile way to live. You're constantly on a treadmill, chasing the next achievement that will hopefully, finally, make you feel good enough. But the finish line always moves. The validation you get from a perfect performance is fleeting, and soon the feeling of inadequacy creeps back in, demanding another flawless victory. This is why feedback can feel so threatening to a perfectionist. A person with healthy self-esteem can hear criticism about their work and understand that it's just information. They can separate the feedback on the project from their identity as a person. For the perfectionist, though, this is nearly impossible. Because their self-worth is completely fused with their work, criticism of the work feels like a direct attack on their core being. It validates their deepest fear, that they are, in fact, not good enough. This is why they work so hard to create a flawless product, to build an impenetrable fortress around their fragile sense of self. The only way to truly break free from perfectionism is to dismantle this myth. It requires you to do the courageous work of building unconditional self-worth. This means embracing the truth that your value as a human being is not up for debate. It's not earned through achievement, and it cannot be diminished by failure. You are already good enough right now, in this moment, with all of your beautiful imperfections. When you start to believe this, the entire psychological structure of perfectionism begins to crumble. You're no longer creating to prove your worth, you're creating as an expression of the worth that's already there. One of the most effective weapons against perfectionism is the intentional use of deadlines. Perfectionism thrives with unlimited time. Break the cycle by assigning yourself a hard deadline. It's about creating a finite container for your work, forcing focus. Ask, what's the best version I can create in this time frame? This shifts you to pragmatic execution. A deadline forces decisions, prioritizes tasks, and accepts good enough. Make deadlines realistic and respected. Break projects into chunks with time budgets. Use a timer and move on when it rings. Completion is more valuable than flawlessness. Set constraints on resources or scope. Constraints aren't limitations. They're guardrails against ambition. Finish what you start. Prove you can ship your work. A powerful mental shift that can really liberate you from the chains of perfectionism is to fundamentally redefine the mission of your work. Perfectionism is almost always fueled by a desire to impress. You're focused on yourself, how you'll be perceived, how your talent will be judged, and whether you'll receive applause and validation. This self-focused pressure is just crushing. The antidote is to turn your focus outward. Change your mission from "how can I impress them" to "how can I serve them?" This simple change in your core question moves your motivation from a place of ego to a place of empathy. And honestly, it changes everything about your creative process. When your goal is to serve, the work is no longer about you. It's about the person you're trying to help, teach, or connect with. If you're writing an article, your focus shifts from crafting the most eloquent prose to providing the clearest, most helpful information for your reader. If you're creating a product, you stop obsessing over the slickness of the design and start focusing on whether it solves a real problem for your user. This outward focus naturally diminishes the fear of judgment. You become less concerned with what people will think of you and more concerned with whether you've made a positive impact, however small, on their lives. This service-oriented mindset also redefines what done looks like. If your goal is to impress, done means flawless. But if your goal is to serve, done means helpful. A blog post with a typo that helps someone solve a pressing problem is infinitely more valuable than a perfectly edited post that sits in your drafts folder forever. A simple, imperfect video that makes someone feel less alone is a greater success than a cinematic masterpiece that never gets uploaded. You start to realize that your audience doesn't need your perfection. They need your help. And they need it now, not when you've finally polished it to an impossible shine. Embracing this mission requires you to truly know who you are serving. Think about that one person, your ideal reader, viewer, or customer. Create for them. Write your email as if you're writing it directly to that one friend. Record your podcast as if you're having a conversation with them. This makes the act of creation more personal, intimate, and less like a performance for a faceless crowd. When you're driven by a genuine desire to contribute to someone else's life, you'll find a new kind of courage. It's the courage to be imperfectly helpful, which is far more powerful than being perfectly silent. We have journeyed through the shadowy landscape of perfectionism, exposing it as a silent killer of potential. From the ancient wisdom of the farmer who must plant in an imperfect world to the modern innovators who built empires on imperfect beginnings, the lesson echoes with undeniable clarity. The goal was never to be flawless. The goal was always to begin, to learn, to grow, and to contribute. Done is better than perfect. It holds the key to unlocking everything you hope to achieve. An imperfect book that is published can change a life. A perfect manuscript that remains on your hard drive cannot. Progress is what builds momentum, and momentum is the force that carries you toward mastery. The world is waiting not for your perfection, but for your contribution. It is in the act of doing that you will find your momentum, build your mastery, and finally unleash the incredible potential that has been waiting within you all along.